You know what you want to do, like you know your passion, you know your calling, but you recognize that where you're at in your life, you're behind.
Okay, I get it.
Other people have been studying for this, they've been preparing for this, and you're behind the curve. What should you do? What is the right answer? We're going to find out what that answer is and a whole lot more on the latest Good Financial Sense podcast. This is episode 121. What is going on, GFC fam, Wealth Hacker Nation? It's your boy Jeff, and it is time to make your life more. And once again, I'm excited, always excited when I record this podcast. Even more so because when I get a chance to answer one of your questions. That's right, I'm going to answer one of your questions, which is a new series I've added to the podcast. If you want to submit a question, go to wealthhackerlabs.com/ask. And there you can submit your question either in text form or in audio. You can actually record a short audio clip asking the question. I hope to feature that on a future podcast. But let's go ahead and dive in to the person's question today. So this question comes from Tyler, and this is what Tyler has to ask. And I learned here that Tyler is in the military. So he's currently serving in the United States Air Force as a maintainer, but his love and passion is for finance. I can totally relate to that. He is just finishing his associate's degree and he's about to start his bachelor's degree, but he wanted to see if I could help him out with something. So he wants to become a financial advisor, but he's afraid that if he attains his degree with no prior experience, because he's currently active duty, that he'll be behind when he starts his career. And hopefully he's asking if I could shed some light for him. He's very passionate with the ambition to succeed. Do I have any advice? Anything would be appreciated. Well, I appreciate you, Tyler, for asking the question. And it is a good question because it is fearful. I mean, any industry is competitive. I don't know if the financial services industry is even more competitive, but it is definitely competitive. And I experienced that myself in my own journey of just trying to get hired and keeping that job, but even more competitive to keep the job because you have to go out and find clients. Typically how these situations work, for those that don't know, whenever you start as a financial advisor, you may fall into a situation where they give you some clients to get started, but for the most part, like, it's on you to find your own clients. And that can be and is very stressful.
What should I do?
I can remember even in the office I started with, so this was a broker-dealer, brokerage firm. They don't exist anymore. They were absorbed into what is now Wells Fargo Advisors. And there was 3 or 4 different advisors that were hired, and many of them, actually I'm thinking 2 at least, didn't make it. They were there for less than a year. Like, that's how hard it is. That is after they have already got the job. And Tyler, you want to know, you are currently in school, active duty. Are you behind? And the short answer is, yeah, you are behind. Like, there are other qualified candidates that are going to school to be financial advisors, or at least they're majoring in finance. And many times they have internships that they go through. And I want to share this because this is the reality. I remember I went back to my alma mater and I was helping out with mock interviews. And I was in the College of Business, and I had like 4 or 5 different people coming in. And I guess the way that this worked out, the College of Business gave me all of the candidates that were interested in becoming a financial advisor. And I think there was like 3 or 4 that I ended up doing these mock interviews with. And I remember 2 of the 4 had already completed internships with other investment firms. And one of them, if I recall, was going on to do another internship. I think this is between like their junior and senior year. So these students already had internships with investment firms, which they could put on their resume. And I remember the last kid that came in, he also had ambitions of being a financial advisor. And when you looked at his resume, he had nothing. Like, yeah, he had some part-time work, that he did like during the summer, and he may have had a part-time job then. But as far as like anything financially related, especially financial services related, he had nothing. And it really showed me, like, when you're just looking on paper, when you're comparing, you've got this, and you're just looking at qualified candidates. I mean, who are you going to lean towards? The person who has experience already? Or are you going to lean towards a person who, like, okay, yeah, they've got a part-time job and an average GPA. I mean, that's how you're going to get passed over. Now, I don't want to share this as a way to discourage you, but just as a way to let you know, like, this is the reality of what exists out there in the marketplace. Like, this is the competition.
All right, man.
That being said, just because you're active duty doesn't necessarily mean that you are behind, because there is something to be said about being active duty, being military. You know, there is a certain level of discipline and procedures that you have to go through that many people don't. And, you know, for those that are in the military, you get it. And I know that for me, being in the military, I had to grow up. You know, I had to grow up really fast. So there's a certain level of maturity and dependability, just reliability that other future employers are going to look to. So just because you may not have like the financial background doesn't necessarily mean that you are behind. Because the other thing that maybe many people don't realize this, that there, and I don't know what the percentages are. I just remember when I went to my training class, when I was first hired as a junior broker, and this is going back in time. So I had to go to the home office, which at the time was up in the actually it was downtown St. Louis. And in my training class, there was about 40 or 50 different people. And you had men and women, and you had all different age groups, all different walks of life. You had many that were just starting their career, like they had just graduated college. I wasn't the youngest person there, but I was definitely one of the youngest 5, if I recall. You had people in their late 20s, early 30s. You also had people in their mid 50s. I can't remember if there's somebody like in their 60s, but definitely like mid to late 50s. And many of them were changing careers. And it was either their second career, maybe it was their third career. Either way, you had people that were brand new to the industry. You had others, everybody was brand new to the industry, but others had prior work experience. Just to show you that to be a successful financial advisor, like there isn't a certain like checklist that you have to go through for it to work. What I have seen, what I've learned, it is you got to be self-motivated, you got to be self-driven. There does need to be an understanding of investing and financial planning, but for the most part, like it's people skills. Like, can you communicate to other people? And I know when I started my career, you know, I was a finance major, got my finance degree, and I had this belief that my clients cared about standard deviation and running risk portfolio analysis on different investments. And I would say quickly learned, but I eventually learned, I know I learned this in the first year, that they didn't care about that stuff. They did ask, was I a finance major? Which I could say, yes, I was.
Good for you.
But at the end of the day, what they most cared about was, or I don't think they cared about it, what the job was. Like what I had to do was I had to break down hard, difficult to understand retirement investment options and explaining like a 401k rollover, explaining, you know, different types of investments, but explaining it in a way where people understood. And they understood that whatever you were sharing, it gave them that peace of mind, knowing that whatever you were saying, they could trust it, that they felt like that you had their best interest at heart because you weren't talking over them, you were talking with them. And I don't know if that makes sense, but I learned, my gosh, I'm more of like, I became more like an educator. I feel like I was a teacher helping people understand what they had or what I was recommending, and did so in a way where they understood it, where they felt like, yes, okay, this makes sense. Like this seems like the best option for us.
But we don't have any other option.
That's what it was. Like, did I need to know all the retirement planning and all that stuff? Like, yeah, I needed to. Like I had to know that for myself, to be able to recommend that and to make suggestions and, you know, to execute on different strategies. But for the most part, they didn't need to know that. They didn't care to know that. They just wanted to make sure that they understood what they had, what they were trying to do, and that they wanted to feel confident that I was there along with them, for that ride. And most of my clients, for the most part, they were, retiring or retirees. So a lot of these people, like, they'd worked their entire life and this was their nest egg, and they just want to make sure that they weren't going to lose it. Like that was pretty much, what a lot of that job was just working with people and to be able to communicate with them so that they understood.
Okay, thanks. I get it.
So to kind of just rehash number one, successful financial advisors are all different walks of life. They all have different backgrounds, and your background is unique to yourself, and you will find people that can relate to you and are willing to work with you if this is truly your passion. So that's number one. Number two, something that you can start doing today is mastering your craft. Like, if you want to be a financial planner, you want to help people with their finances and with investments, then you can begin learning on your own. Now, you're in the military, so I'm assuming you have access to the TSP. Make sure that you are investing in the TSP. Make sure that you understand all of the different options that exist within that TSP. Try to get it to where you can explain to other people, other servicemen and women that are also in that TSP, like trying to explain to them where it makes sense. Begin working on your craft. In addition to the TSP, I would highly encourage you to open a Roth IRA somewhere. I don't really care where it is. It could be like with a Webull or a Robinhood or an M1 Finance, or if you have access to some sort of investment firm locally there, like wherever you're stationed. It could be Edward Jones. It could be an E-Trade. It could be a Wells Fargo. Like, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that you open up that Roth IRA so that you understand the process and you start doing your own research on investments that are outside of the TSP. Because I know with the TSP, you have limited choices. Begin working on your craft. The other thing is that I'm assuming that you have people that you serve with that are in the TSP. If there's any other investing or saving programs that the military offers, begin asking the people you serve with, like, what questions do they have about their TSP? How much are they saving? Why did they choose that amount? And if you can, try to position yourself as that go-to person that can answer like these people's questions. Just kind of put yourself out there and say, hey, listen, I want to become a financial advisor, so I'm trying to learn how this works. Are you willing to just share some information of like, okay, why did you choose that amount? Why did you choose those investments? What questions do you have? What fears do you have? And begin just asking people. Some people won't be willing to share, but you'll find a lot of people that are.
Thank you so much for your kind words.
I mean, the truth is that I learned more by doing than actually like any of the stuff that I have read, books, all that stuff, right? I learned by doing, and chances are I suspect that would also be the case for you. That does move us on to number 3, is to begin your education now. Now, I know that you're serving in the military full-time, you're active duty. So you're like, well, how can I do that? Like, I can't do this until I start. But there are ways that you can become educated in financial planning, in personal finance, and in investing. Now, there are like personal finance courses that you can take. Full disclaimer, I've never taken any, but I know that if you do a quick search on Google, because I did, there are quite a few that you can take. And that might be something just to kind of help you understand all the different aspects of personal finance, whether it be saving and investing and insurance, estate planning, all this stuff, right? So that is one thing. One other thing that I would tell you, and this is, I did not do this myself, but I was thoroughly impressed whenever I learned this about somebody. So back when I was at the first firm I started with, there was a guy who wanted to become a financial advisor. Now, he was a little bit older and he already had a career, and I forgot what he was doing, but he knew that he wanted to make that transition to being a financial advisor. So what he started doing was he actually bought, okay, let me take a step back.
Oh, let's do that again.
Not only did he know that he wanted to be a financial advisor, but he also wanted to become a CFP, a certified financial planner. And that is the credentials that I have. And that is by far the most sought out credentials in our industry. The CFP is like the CPA of accounting. To get your CFP, you first have to take a test, which takes a long time. And it's a hard test. It's like a 2-day exam, by far the hardest test I've ever taken in my entire life. In addition to that, you have to have certain number of years of work experience doing financial planning. And at the time of this recording, I forget what that requirement is. I believe it's 2 years. It may be 3. You can double check me. You can go to cfp.net and find out. But let's just say it's a minimum of like 2 years, right? So what he did was he already bought the CFP books, the training guides that you take. And you can go, like Kaplan is one. There are quite a few. You can do a quick search once again for CFP training materials. So he already bought all like the training books, and it's not cheap. Like I did a quick search on one. It was like over $4,000 to get everything. And that might have been the books and also like an online study guide. So you might be able to get the books for cheaper. But he already had all this stuff. And if I recall, he already had scheduled, or maybe he already had it. Let's just say he had it scheduled. He'd already scheduled his CFP exam. This was all before he had been hired. So he was already doing this on his own. And just so you know, like the CFP training program, like it is, I believe like a 2-year process unless you do some sort of like accelerated. I went the accelerated route, which was offered kind of like a special program that was offered at the firm I used to work for. And the accelerated program took 11 months. So just to kind of give you an idea, like that was the fast track and that was 11 months. So for those that are doing it on their own, I mean, I've heard anywhere from 2 to 3 years, depending. Now, probably most people probably do the accelerated track now, but either way, like it takes a while because, you know, most people are doing this, they're working, they've got family. So it's not like you're doing this full time. So he already had all this taken care of. And this is before he was even hired. So, you know, he's interviewing for this job to be a financial advisor. And you're like, okay, when you're looking at him compared to other people that have applied, I mean, this guy had already bought all the training materials and he had already scheduled the test. Like that's legit. I mean, this shows that, yeah, he is definitely passionate about being a financial planner. So anybody can come in saying, oh, look at me, I'm passionate, this is what I want to do, I know it. Those are words, and words are great. What about the actions? You know, what is this person actually doing? And to separate them, kind of like looking at the resumes of those college students, the ones that want to be a financial advisor that had already done the internships and were looking to do other internships, as opposed to the one that wanted to do it but hadn't taken any steps towards it and didn't have anything planned for that matter either. So that's a big one, right? And I'm not telling you that you have to go and take the CFP exam, but if you had bought the training materials and you began going through them, and you could share this on an interview of a financial services firm that you might be interested in working with, to me, that just shows like, yeah, like I'm in it. Like I'm in it to win it. Like this is what I've already done as compared to other people, you know, that are talking about it, but they haven't taken any action. That's the third thing. And the last thing that I would share, and this is definitely not a requirement at all. I think somebody that has a blogging, online media presence, you know, background is, I would suggest that you document your process, your progress. Like, where are you at right now? Are you have a TSP, and how much are you saving? What are your goals? Do you have any debt? How much are you paying in insurance? Like basically start some sort of blog or start some sort of online accountability tool that you can use. And why I would suggest this is because, one, it's going to help with communication. It's going to help with you understand it, because if you have to actually share this out loud, you know, that makes you prepare. Like sometimes I can record a podcast off the cuff. For the most part, like I have to do, you know, some research unless I'm just sharing a story, sharing my experience. But it forces you to go out and do a little bit more homework, a little bit more research, and you're learning through that process. You're also going to make tremendous connections as well, because a blog or a YouTube channel or a podcast is an online business card, and you never know who you may connect with. And I don't have any specific examples right now off the top of my head, but I assure you that anybody that started an online presence, if they had a desire to go on to something else, like in this case, in your case, become a financial advisor, that putting themselves out there online, you will get a connection. Like you will meet somebody that could introduce you to somebody that could be your next thing. But that doesn't happen unless you put yourself out there. Now that is definitely the last step. And it is an optional step. But I will say that is an option that has worked well for me. So that is why I highly suggest it.
Thank you so much.
All right, Tyler, I hope that answers your question about wanting to become a financial advisor, being a bit behind. I hope I gave you some really good action steps and some things to consider that could help propel you ahead to get you in the door and eventually hired by whatever firm that you enjoy working for. Helping people with their finances, with retirement was definitely a gift, something I'm grateful for, and something that I know that you're going to enjoy as well. All right, y'all, if you have any questions like Tyler, once again, you can go to wealthhackerlabs.com/ask, and there you can submit that question. Once again, you can also submit the audio question if you want to go that route as well. Until next time, this is Jeff Rose reminding you that it's your money, it's your life, and only you can make it awesome. Until next time, peace.